Chats with Andrew Burnett. If you know about the Southern Gospel group, the Perrys, you're going to know this guy right here. My guest, Jason Gordon. How you doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
Great. I am excited to have you on. So, for starters, tell us a little bit about how you got into gospel music.
Lord, that was a long time ago. Well, long story short, I had a teacher in middle school that told me I should be in choir. He had heard me sing. It was a project during class that we had to go and sing to him. We was learning about American history and stuff. We had old black spiritual songs that the slaves used to sing. And so we had to go back to him and learn the song and sing it to him. And he told me I should be in choir. Well, that got me thinking maybe there was something to it. So anyway, started singing in youth group at church. And then there was a group out of my church called the Gospelers. Lo and behold, they asked me to sing with them 21 years later. I resigned from them. And so that's how I got started a long time ago.
So, who was some of your earliest inspirations that really impacted you to go into gospel music that really helped you to where you are today?
Well, it sounds cliche, but the Perrys was one of my favorites growing up, as well as the Wisnets was also a favorite of mine. Um, and I had dreamed, my dream had always been to sing with one of those two. And well, then Ethan and Austin started coming up with the Wisnets, and I'm like, well, that's never going to happen with them. And Aaron, he just don't want to leave. So, but anyway, so they were two of my biggest favorites growing up.
That's awesome. So, explain to us a little bit about how you got introduced to this group called the Perrys and how you got on the road with them now.
Sure. Well, I was with the Fabulous Blackwood Quartet at the time, and I saw Libby had posted on Facebook that she was looking for a singer. Actually, she was looking for a lead singer, and I knew it was at the top of my range, so I wasn't sure, but I went ahead and applied, not thinking anything would ever happen out of it. But it took her about 3 months to get back with me, and then I went in for an audition, and she had already moved Dayton into that lead position, but she's like, "But I'm going to at you for baritone, which fit me better anyway." So, um, uh, I went to the audition. She hired me on the spot.
So, everybody loves Libby Perry, everybody
Uh,
that knows her in the industry, and even fans such as myself. So, what is one of your favorite Libby stories?
there's lots of favorite Libby stories. I've got to tell you, there's a recent story that has happened that Dayton was telling me about. I was actually in the bunk bed. I did not see this happen. But we was going down the road. Jared was driving the bus, and Libby always sits in the buddy seat until the bus stops. If that's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, she's sitting there. And but she likes to sleep while sitting there. And so she was asleep in the buddy seat. Dayton and was sitting in a little fold out chair between the two of them. And well, we came into some traffic and we was going maybe 2 mile an hour behind this semi truck. And Libby woke up thinking we was still going full force down the interstate. And here we are just a couple feet from this semi truck, and she starts screaming, thinking we're about to hit it. And Jared's like, calm down. We're only doing 2 mile an hour. So, but yeah, that's one of my favorite stories of her, but there's so many.
Oh, wow. So, for a Southern gospel fan or Christian music fan in general that may have never experienced a Perry's concert, what can you expect when you walk through those doors?
Well, come expecting to worship. We're not there to entertain. We hope you are entertained by what we do. And but we're there mostly to worship and to honor God. And we want to see people move. We want to see souls saved, hearts rededicated. Um, there's a lot of discouraged Christians in the church these days, and with everything going on, we want to encourage them, let them know that Christ is still on the throne. and he's still in control of everything. We've read the back of the book. We win, folks. So that's what we're there for. And you can expect we're going to try our best to portray that message to you if you come to our concerts.
So, a great new radio single from y'all called I Think I'll Just Go On. Tell us a little bit about that single.
Yeah, I think I'll just go on was a good song. We we get discouraged, we get downhearted. We don't know what tomorrow holds, just what I was saying, but we've just got to decide because you have a decision. You can stay in the pit of despair, or you can decide to go ahead and praise him and go ahead and go on and expect great things. So to me, that's what that song's all about.
So, I hear you have a little podcast on the side that you do with this guy named Tony Goforth. I mean,
Yeah.
he's okay, but I was just talking to him last night about bringing him on the program. Share with us a little bit about the idea behind the podcast.
Yeah, well, people see us. Me and Tony got together. We was both singing with the Blackwood Quartet at the time. He was our tenor singer, and I was the baritone. And people come up to us at the product table. They think this is a very glamorous life, and all they see is an hour of when we're on that platform, and it's not so glamorous behind that the scenes. And so we're like, we want to be open and honest with everybody about what we do and everything that goes on with this industry, as far as all the long hours of driving and riding in a car or a bus or a van, and setting up when you get there, all of that extra stuff. And so we said, well, let's start a podcast so we people can understand. We'll talk about these things, the places we go eat and the places we get to go see and visit, the people we get to meet. And so we created this podcast called Backstage Pass with Tony and Jason. And so it gives you a backstage to what we do.
So, who are some of your favorite guests that you featured on that podcast so far?
Let's see. Some of my favorite guests. Aaron Swain of Promised Land Quartet. He's my buddy, and he came on there. We interviewed him. We also interviewed Dayton Gay, which is our lead singer with the Perrys. He's turned into a great friend. Um, and his testimony is just amazing. But my all-time greatest favorite interview was Libby Perry Stuffle. What a story she actually does have of her history and how the Perrys got started, and she kind of opened up for us on that podcast a little bit and told about all of that. So that was probably my favorite.
Anybody that's in the Southern gospel world lately has been feeling kind of numb and in shock as we got the news about the
Mm,
tragedy of the Nealons. What were
yeah.
one of your favorite memories of meeting them or that you got to share with them?
I've never actually got to meet them. We never sung with them. I've only been with the Perrys for a year, and we never got to sing with them. Now I do remember it's been years ago. There was a guy called Shellam Klein that I'm friends with in North Carolina. I remember him when he was just a kid standing on a chair singing behind the pulpit with his grandpa. And now he's in the country Christian music world, doing very well. But he was hosting a concert in our hometown, and he had the Nealons there, and he had Nathan Kiesler there as well. He was friends with Nathan, due to Nathan coming with his family and singing at his church in the past. And so I got to hear them live in concert. That was the only time I got to hear them live, and I never got to meet them that night. But wow, the power behind their voices and the message they carried was amazing.
So, what's coming up for the Perrys?
Oh wow, what isn't coming up for the Perrys? We have a new album coming out. It's the first album with me and Dayton on it, and we just sent it to New York to get mastered, and so it should be back anytime. We're hoping to debut it at the National Quartet Convention coming up in September. So if you're going to be there, you can pick up the new album there. It's going to be called Long, Long Road. And so that's exciting news. So yeah, we're excited about all that.
So, what was your feelings about being back in the studio again?
Nah, it was great. Felt like home. I hadn't been in the studio in several years, and it was good. It was good. And that was one of the first times I had been, actually it was the first time I had ever been in a studio of that caliber, recording at that level. And it was Wayne Hahn is just amazing guy, easy to work with, and one of the smartest men in music I've ever seen in my life. So it was really good.
You know, I've always heard it said that uh, a song has to minister to you before
Yeah,
you send it out into the audience. So, what would be one of
absolutely.
your favorite songs that you sang with the Perrys that has ministered to you?
Well, there's a new song on this new album I'm really excited about, called Million Reasons. And I I really pushed for this song to be on the album because it does speak to me in such a way. It talks about how we've given God a million reasons not to love us. We've pushed him to the side so many times, but none of those reasons has ever changed his mind of loving us. I can see that in my entire life. There was a time several years ago I was in such a low pit in my life, didn't know which way to turn. It seemed like everything was happening at the same time, and I got out of church. I ran away from God. I didn't want nothing to do with the things of Christ. I stopped reading my Bible. I stopped praying. Didn't go to church for 2 or 3 years, and he was always there. No matter how fast I tried to run away from him, he was always there with me and always there with open arms wanting to take me back. And finally I turned around and came back to him, and he welcomed me just like the prodigal son.
So, won't you share with us your testimony about how you came to Christ, if you would?
Yes. Well, my dad was a independent Baptist preacher. So I was brought up in church my entire life. I tell people at concerts when I give my testimony, I tell them I had a drug problem at a very early age. I was drugged to church anytime the doors were open, as well as whenever the doors was not open, because we was always there cleaning the church or doing something. And but so I was about 7 or 8 years old, and my dad was preaching. I was at Plaza Road Baptist Church in Charlotte, and I was sitting on the second pew on the left hand side of the church as you're looking at the pulpit, and sitting with my mom, and I got to thinking I needed to be saved. I hadn't been saved, and I knew if I hadn't been saved, I would go to hell. And so I turned to mom and said, I need to be saved. And she took me up to the altar, and my dad came down and he led me to the Lord. And that day, and I'll never forget it the rest of my life. I wasn't the perfect child, by no means afterwards. As Dayton says, we have more when you're saved that early, you have more to be regretful of after you got saved than you did before you got saved. But like I said, God's never pushed me away. He's always loved me through it
And
all.
you know it may sound cliche, but we've heard it in gospel music a whole lot. No matter how far you run, you can always come back home.
Yes, exactly. You're exactly right. That's so true.
And that's the great thing about gospel music is you can listen to it and the power of the message will convict you, or you can be listening and having a bad day and turn on that gospel song and it can change your life. And I can tell you from a
Yeah.
personal experience, last year I was in the hospital 17 times in a
Mm,
row
goodness,
with
brother.
chronic UTIs before I got on dialysis. And there was times that I would just cut on the Perry's music and I would sit there and I would just let those words minister to me like the potter knows the clay and
Sure.
some of the great songs that Libby has done over the years.
Yes. Wonderful songs. Mhm.
So has there ever been a Perry song that has ministered to you so far that while you were in a time of need that continually lifts your soul?
Absolutely. Well, there's several, obviously. But one in particular, I tell people it's my favorite Perry song. Um, is Never a time. Never a time is. I mean, it goes through and says, not one time has God ever been unfaithful. Has not one time has God ever, His mercy's not ever been new. It's so true, If you look back on your life, not one time has God ever left us, and that's very similar to my A Million Reasons song, but that's the same message. God just loves us no matter what we do, and He's never going to stop.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for doing the interview. I want you to share with the people how we can find out more about the Perrys.
Sure. Well, we got a website, perrysministries.com, as well as a Facebook page. There's several actually. You've got Friends of the Perrys, which is a group, and you have Perrys on Facebook, as well as I think the Perrys on Facebook as well. So any of those you can find us, as well as each one of us have our own personal Facebook page. You can all find us there too. So yeah, any of that.
Well, Jason, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for being a guest on Fate Chats.
Absolutely, Andrew. Well, thank you for having me.